Okay, I want you to forget everything you've ever been told about self-improvement. Today, we're diving into a philosophy of discipline that isn't about finding balance or feeling good. No, this is about building an internal architecture, a system inside you so strong that your actions become, well, inevitable. So let's break that down.
We're going to build this idea from the ground up, moving through 4 really distinct stages. We'll start with the absolute foundation, then build the framework on top of it, explore what that does to your actual identity, and finally, look at how you sustain something this powerful for a lifetime.
And right out of the gate, we have to tackle this. The whole self-help world tends to talk about discipline in a way that's, well, it's comforting, right? But this philosophy argues that framing is ultimately useless. The approach we're exploring today is not gentle. It's designed to be ruthlessly effective. So let's get into that foundation. The very first step requires a pretty radical reversal of how most of us operate day to day. It's all about severing the link between how we feel and what we do. You know, what's so powerful about this slide is it shows 2 completely different ways of living. On the left, that's the world most people are in, a life that's completely at the mercy of their moods. You feel tired, so you stop. You feel scared, so you avoid. But look at the right side. The whole hierarchy is flipped on its head. Action is the cause, and emotion is just the effect that trails behind. So this is the crucial takeaway, the first law. It's the one non-negotiable rule of this entire system. See, motivation is unreliable. It's volatile. It will betray you. True discipline treats motivation as completely and totally irrelevant. You act because it is time to act, period. And this isn't some gentle nudge. It's described as an act of internal violence. Now, to be perfectly clear, we're not talking about self-harm. This is a metaphorical war against your own weakness. Every single time you act without waiting for your feelings to give you permission, you are literally fracturing the authority of that weaker self, the one that just loves to hesitate and negotiate. Okay, so if we're not relying on our feelings or motivation anymore, then what are we relying on? Let's move to our second section and see how this framework gets built. Because it's not about forcing yourself through every single action. It's about designing a system where you don't have to. And this just lays it out so clearly. When you rely on willpower, every task is a fight, right? It's a confrontation that just drains your battery. A system, on the other hand, makes tasks procedural. You're not trying to summon some heroic strength, you're just following a pre-written script. Disciplined people don't actually push harder, they just have to decide less often.
So how do you actually build these systems? Well, here are 3 really concrete ways. First, temporal. Your schedule isn't a list of nice ideas, it's a set of commands. Second, environmental. You literally redesign your physical space so that the right choice becomes the easiest choice. And third, identity. You stop telling yourself you're disciplined. You just act over and over and over until the evidence is so overwhelming it becomes part of who you are.
This quote really gets to the core of it. Self-trust is emotional. It comes and it goes. Structure, though, is external. It's stable. And think about that last line for a second. When structure exists, failure requires effort. That means you'd have to actively fight against your own system just to fail. It's a total game changer.
And when you start to live this way, it doesn't just change what you do, it fundamentally changes who you are. And this leads us to the really profound psychological shift that happens when discipline becomes real.
This right here is such a crucial distinction. We all chase confidence, but confidence is fragile. It depends on what other people think, on your last win or loss. Self-respect, the kind that's born from discipline, is totally different. It's an internal, quiet certainty. It's based on the mountain of evidence you've built of your own actions. You just know you'll follow through, and that knowledge is absolutely unshakable. But here's a fascinating and sometimes difficult social consequence of this new identity. When you become relentlessly consistent, your actions start to act like a mirror to the people around you. And often, it reflects their own inconsistency right back at them. And that can create some real challenges in your relationships. So, how do you handle that? The key is to never apologize for your discipline. Don't try to over-explain it or water it down just to make other people feel comfortable. Your number one responsibility is to protect the system you've built. And sometimes, you have to allow a certain behavioral separation to exist. That's just part of it. And this leads us to another fundamental law. To maintain this kind of structure, you need solitude. Now, this isn't about being lonely or isolated. It's about intentional time away from the noise and the demands of everyone else.
It's in those quiet moments that you can check your systems, make adjustments, and reinforce your commitment without any interference.
And that brings us to the final and maybe biggest challenge. How do you make this last? How do you maintain this architecture for years, for decades, without becoming some rigid, burnt-out machine?
So here's another powerful reframe. We're all told that hard work leads to burnout. But what if that's not true? What if burnout isn't about the work itself, but about all the emotional drama we attach to the work? It's the resentment, the self-pity, the whole struggle narrative we build around it. That's what's so exhausting, not the actual effort.
And this slide just shows the difference so perfectly. The undisciplined person lives in this crazy cycle of extremes. All out, insane intensity, followed by a complete and total collapse. The disciplined person, though, operates in waves. Yeah, there are periods of intense push, but they are always followed by periods of consolidation, where you ease back, but you never ever break the routine.
So, the key principles for making this last a lifetime are pretty clear. You have to separate the work from the story you tell yourself about the work. You move in cycles, not a straight, unending line upwards. You anchor your actions to a purpose that doesn't change with your mood. And finally, you learn that saying no isn't selfish, it's essential maintenance for your entire system.
And as you sustain this over a long, long time, something else begins to emerge, and that's authority. Not the loud, domineering kind that bosses people around, but a quiet influence that just comes from pure reliability. People start to trust you because your actions are predictable and your word is rock solid.
So after all of this, after the systems, the identity shifts, that internal war on weakness, we finally arrive at the absolute core truth of this philosophy. This was never about simply improving yourself.
The entire goal, the whole purpose of building this internal architecture is to forge yourself into something else entirely.
And that's the end game. To create a system so robust that your success, your actions, your very character are no longer a matter of chance or mood or motivation. They just are. They become inevitable.